Good afternoon, class. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see my presentation. Give me 1 second. There we go. So the movie that I chose to write about was Fight Club, the story of schizophrenia in an undiagnosed individual. So we all know Fight Club. There's a narrator who, like, he's having problems, with sleep and insomnia. He's a car manufacturer. Um, he meets, he decides to start going to these support groups. He meets a girl named Marla. They agree eventually because they're both not, neither of them have any of these disorders or any of these conditions. They agree to go to separate ones. Then he meets Tyler Durden. They just get into a fight. He needs somewhere to live, so he decides to stay with him. He tells him to punch him as hard as he can. They get into a fight in the alley. And in the end, we learn out that Tyler Durden is actually the narrator. So he was schizophrenic. He's seeing things and hearing things, having auditory hallucinations, and it's actually him that he's fighting himself. The vulnerable population that I chose to look at was undiagnosed individuals in the community. So there's a lot of undiagnosed individuals in the community. Um, and he was legally incompetent. I said if he was charged for his crimes, I think he would be seen as legally incompetent. One of the things that stood out, he shot himself to get rid of someone who's not there. So he was seeing Tyler Durden and he realized that it was his own hand holding the gun in his mouth. And to try to get rid of it, he shoots himself. So that's not something a rational person would do. So my beliefs regarding this population is that people don't want to be diagnosed with mental illness because they feel because of the stigma of mental illness in America. They don't want that stigma. They don't want people judging them. They don't want people, calling them names. They don't want people saying, "Oh, well, you are this because you got that condition or you got this condition." And a lot of people with mental illnesses sometimes they don't come from supportive families. They want them in jail or in the streets and stuff like that, and having other complications in their life that they have to deal with because they have a mental illness and is undiagnosed or untreated. But I feel like there's a medication for everybody. You just have to find the right combination, and people need to try hard and work at it. Maybe some won't work well, but just tell your doctor, and they'll be willing to work with you. Most of them are, but there are some bad doctors out there, of course, just like in any other industry. Some of the ethical dilemmas, sorry, that I brought up. Um, Informed consent. You can't get informed consent from somebody who's mentally incompetent. So you would have to get a family member. And if they didn't have a family member, you have to figure out some other way of getting informed consent. In this case, he's just living, in a rundown place. He doesn't have anybody else there for him to help him handle these decisions. So that is a big ethical dilemma. Who gives consent? If he can't give consent, who gives it for him? Would this be something that's court ordered because he committed crimes? That's a whole big ethical issue. And also, with people who are mentally incompetent, they can talk about certain things and have control and some power, but you can't. You have to be careful what you grant, and that's one of the things that I thought would be ethical dilemma. Another one that I pointed out, well, something else I pointed out, there was a violation of the Virginia laws. If this wasn't your field of practice, like working with a severely mentally ill, then it would be either best to refer them out to another professional who can handle the case, or to get supervision to help you work with this individual. But I think probably referring them out would be a better decision because, severely mentally ill people are a different population than other populations, and it's a little bit harder for people to deal with them, especially ones that are unmedicated, and some of them don't want to take medication. So you can try to convince them to take medication, but if you can't, you just have to work with them without medication. That may be very complicated and stressful for most people. So I think self-care would also be important as well. And so social justice and advocacy for this population. So I would like to open a mental health hospital, forensic mental health hospital for people who commit crimes who are mentally ill. I don't believe they belong in jail. So I think this, or prison, I think this will be a better opportunity or better outcome for them to get them in a place where they can get the help they need. In jail, the services are very limited. They're not getting as much attention as they need, and it's not very individualized. There's a lot of group counseling and group things, and some of them do see individualized therapists, but they see them not as frequently probably as they should to get the help they need. And they're living in an unstable environment, which I don't think is good for them either. So that's my presentation in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me get back to the stop sharing screen. I hope you enjoyed it and you found this interesting. Take care and have a good week. Bye.